Silksong, more than the original Hollow Knight, designed its world to be massive, sprawling, but also connected in a way that we haven't seen before. I can walk out from the top of the blasted steps and throw Hornet down a cliff, and she will fall through around 4 total areas. Now that we're past the blasted steps, we're going right across near Shellwood, and as we continue to fall, we will eventually pass Bone Bottom. And if we continue to fall from there, we will eventually reach Moss Grotto. 4 separate areas, all accessed by falling down one long pathway. There is nothing like that in the original Hollow Knight, and it's something like this that makes Farloom so wonderful to explore with all of our movement abilities. Sadly, I always felt one movement ability didn't reach the heights of the dash, the fade down cloak, or even the claw line, and that is the Silk Soar. The Silk Soar is certainly very good to use, it feels very good to use, and it's fun when it gets to work, but I've always felt like Team Cherry added this ability and only added a very small handful of places where it had any use whatsoever. You can use it anywhere you want. You can use it here where the elevator used to be in Bone Bottom. However, other than a very slight few examples, most of the uses of Silk Soar are unnecessary. The game and world of Farloom is designed to be traversed without Silk Soar in the vast majority of cases. And in cases where we might want to use Silk Soar, like here to fly all the way up to Blasted Steps, it is fully impossible to do so. You can't Silk Soar through loading zones. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I always felt there was with this skill. Something that Team Cherry agreed was a mistake, seemingly, because Team Cherry just recently made a post saying that they are releasing a public beta with a bunch of changes to Hollow Knight Silksong, and the one that I was most interested in is allowed Silk Soar through top scene exits. For such a simple line of patch notes, it has a massive implication. Just watch what you can do from the bottom of Moss Grotto. Silk Soar was one of the most limited movement abilities for a long time, and now it seems Team Cherry wants to unshackle those chains they put around it. Theoretically anyway, because based on what I just did, it seems like Team Cherry almost removed the limit that Silk Soar has. Silk Soar's basic limit, normally, is that it has to hit something above Hornet's head for it to work. If it doesn't hit something, it doesn't work. However, now that it can go through loading zones, it appears it can almost ignore that hitting something requirement. And more than that, these upward loading zones you see with Silk Soar, they did not exist before this beta patch. If we wanted to use some cheats or glitches to find a way to jump up through these loading zones, since we know Silk Soar can't be done in these old patches, then we will find that those loading zones that you see on the new patches simply do not exist. You cannot go upwards through these passages. You can fall down through them, but Team Cherry never made the reverse true. Probably because they felt they didn't have to, with Silk Soar not letting you go through those loading zones. But now that they added that capability to Silk Soar, not only did they change how that mechanic worked, they added tons of upward loading zones all throughout Farloom that weren't there before. If we could have a glitch at the beginning of the game to get up there, we could go from Bone Bottom all the way to the Blasted Steps. And as you can see, that is certainly true, because the loading zones don't just exist with Silk Soar. We activate the same infinite jump pack, and we can go through those loading zones now, even without Silk Soar. And given Team Cherry doesn't change this before releasing it to the public, this seems like it's going to be available to everyone within the next couple of weeks. And it's fascinating. It makes me wonder though, how exactly does this new change to Silk Soar work? Because it appears as if Team Cherry allows you to use Silk Soar to go through loading zones with no ceilings, and doing so seems to break the entire functionality of Silk Soar. So what could possibly be the case for them allowing that interaction? Well, the truth is the interaction is not so broken as I initially thought it was, and I'm going to spend the rest of the video showing off spots that aren't just this one long pathway, where you can now use Silk Soar to great effectiveness, and also finding out how Silk Soar works now on this new patch in different ways than it did in the past, because it certainly is very different now, and the new capabilities of Silk Soar could be used to find new skips, new tricks, and just they could lead to new things entirely once Sea of Sorrow finally comes out. If you didn't immediately think of going from Moss Grotto to Blasted Steppes when you saw that Silksoar lost its upward limit, then you probably thought of doing it in Mount Fae. Mount Fae is probably the other longest stretch by which you could fall in normal gameplay in Hollow Knight Silksong, and I always found it fun to go up to the top of the area, whether I needed to be there for the Mr. Mushroom quest or for some other reason, and to just jump off. And as you can see, this new patch does add loading zones in more places than where I just showed you. I can pretty much guarantee that upwards loading zone did not exist before this Silksoar beta happened. And I figured, now that Silksoar has no upward limit, why not just use it? Yeah, so it's not as simple as Silksoar has no upward limit, as you can see, and as I discovered while testing this out. You cannot use it to fly up a lot of places in Mount Fae, but you may ask, Kilroy, why is that the case when you can clearly do it in a much longer stretch of space? Well, it is because of the ceiling requirement. So if we use Silksoar from this area right here, we actually have to hit onto something, and what we hit onto is not on this screen, but on the next screen. You have to specifically target your Silksoar not just to hit something in the first screen anymore, but to hit something on any screen. If it hits a ceiling, then it works. If it doesn't hit a ceiling, it doesn't matter if you throw it up onto another pathway to another screen, it will not let you go up. So if we move slightly to the right of where it just worked, it will still work here. But we move a bit to the right where there is no land above Hornet, and it fails. So realistically, what Team Terror did with this patch is they turned all of Silksoar's capabilities to be the exact same way, except now they can apply to multiple rooms at once, which is crazy to me. It's like Team Cherry is loading every room on the map just for Silksoar to be able to interact with their hitboxes. I don't know if they had the other rooms loaded previously, but based on the way Silksoar works now, you have to consider the geography of every room in the game if you want to try and Silksoar through loading zones. Because there's no solid place above our head here, even though there is a loading zone above our head here, we cannot Silksoar. So everyone who wants to use this new Silksoar in speedruns, and if it has applications in speedruns, you've got to get your mental map going. You've got to get that down pat to know where every single block and hitbox is in every room in this game. It is sad that we can't just fly off into outer space using Silksoar now, but for a balancing purpose, this makes way more sense. And honestly, it's pretty magical that this was even something that Team Cherry decided to implement months after the game first came out, because I don't know how difficult this actually was to implement, but it almost seems to slide in perfectly with the way Silksoar already existed in this game, so much so that I don't know if this change to Silksoar is actually going to break the game open even a slight bit. Team Cherry seems to be so well thought out in this massive change that I don't know if it actually is a massive change. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that, because the many cases where you may think, my dear viewer, that this new Silksoar will break the game open, absolutely does not, because Team Cherry was so smart and thoughtful with how they implemented this. My thoughts immediately went to areas like the climb to the surface in Silksong. Of course, it went to this because it's probably one of the only real platforming challenges we get in Silksong. No Path of Pain for us yet, but the way things are now, I came here expecting that this would make a difference. It changes absolutely nothing. This entire room is structured in such a way that you get almost no areas to even try and start a Silksoar. Where I am right here, there is no ground for me to do a Silksoar off of. And even if I could, do you see how many platforms are littering the path that would immediately stop a Silksoar? I thought that maybe because Team Cherry didn't design this area with the mechanic in mind where you could Silk Soar through a loading zone, that maybe there would be a slim path where you could start a Silk Soar and go all the way through the top loading zone and use that to skip the whole platforming challenge. But the way these areas seem to be designed, it almost seems like Team Cherry had an idea in their minds to design Silk Soar this way from the very moment they started creating this game. So I think it's very possible, based on the general design philosophy that Team Cherry has for Act 3, that not only did they understand that people would be trying to use Silk Soar to skip around platforming challenges, but also that people would be using Silk Soar expecting to be able to fly through loading zones. So really, this whole feature screams of something that was being developed for a while, and maybe they couldn't get it to work perfectly without it glitching heavily. But because they had it in mind for so long during development, all the main areas of this game with which you would expect this new Silk Soar to massively open up skips, none of that is there. You have a very tiny set of areas where you can even use the Silk Soar to go through loading zones and have it help you at all. You can do it through most loading zones now. It is a fun thing to do just to play around with. And there are some areas where having the ability to Silk Soar through loading zones is genuinely helpful. However, the surface path is not one of those areas. One of those areas where you do get help with the new Silk Soar is Whiteward, oddly enough. Yes, when you leave Whiteward through the normal means, you end up getting kind of spit out right around the underworks, the area where you're close to the claw line, and normally that's just it. You leave and you're not allowed to come back. In fact, if you hit this lever here and you just go down and hit another one, not only are you not allowed to jump up there, but this is a one-way door. The second that door shuts, you are not getting back into the Whiteward from this place. So instead, when you fall, if you want to get back into the Whiteward, don't hit that lever. Instead, you can use your new amazing Silk Soar ability to fly up right through the set piece that normally is meant to make it impossible to go back. And, of course, once you're here, you can use Silk Soar again to burn yourself, and once you've sufficiently burned toward it, realize you can just double jump and make it back up that way. Yeah, I kind of indirectly showed off the problem with a lot of Silk Soars in this game. That problem being, Team Cherry limits where you can even start Silk Soars in a lot of places where you would want to. Case in point, you can fall from the Whispering Vaults into Biowater on accident, and when you do so, it is a great place to fall to because this is where the Twisted Butt is. However, a lot of people would want to go back and explore the other secrets they were already trying to find in the Whispering Vaults. And the thing is, this is the absolute perfect scenario where we would want to be able to Silk Soar now that we can Silk Soar through the ceiling. But because we are stuck in the maggots here, we have no ability to activate the Silk Soar to go through the upwards loading zone and take us back to the Whispering Vault. And Team Cherry knows that, because this is one of the few loading zones they didn't even add with this patch. Maybe this video will make them add it, but even if they do add a loading zone there, the point is still the same. You cannot activate a Silk Soar while being in the water, maggot covered or otherwise. So even though there are a lot of rooms like this where having this new Silk Soar would be helpful, Team Cherry almost double locked these problems. You know, when you have a problem that's so strong that you want to make two separate things to stop you from going back up into the Whispering Vaults. Hey, I wouldn't see any big game design problems going back into the Whispering Vaults from here, just like how I wouldn't see any big game design problems being able to use Silk Soar in a lot of other places. But realistically, Team Cherry sees more of the real problems than I do, and I'm just doing things for fun, so a lot of things I do are specifically things Team Cherry would take issue with, whether it's glitches or skips or anything like that. So I commend Team Cherry for doing a very, very good job at making this game solid and hard to break, but I'm upset at Team Cherry because their design philosophy means this new Silk Soar is cool, but is not going to break the game open. It gives the mechanic more depth, which is phenomenal. I hope this depth is explored in their future content. However, as things stand right now, pretty much all you can do with the new Silk Soar is the stuff that I've shown you in this video. You can do the massive jump from the bottom of the game and you can do some other less meaningful jumps. But no glitches right now. If I find some, I will let you know, dear viewer. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a good day, everyone. Enjoy the new content while it's here.